Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to share today's video with you because today we are going to be diving into my favorite fall book recommendations. And this is going to include, of course, a list of some of my personal favorites and ones that I've read that are very near and dear to my heart and just really encapsulate the essence of fall. And then I'm also going to be talking about a few books on my to be read list on my TBR, so I'm really excited about those too, and I've actually started reading a couple of them and they are such a vibe, so I'm super excited to share with you today, and let's jump into it. Okay, so I want to start off with a book that has been very near and dear to my heart for a very long time, and that is Anne of Green Gables. And I don't think this is just a fall book. I feel like it kind of starts in summer and we go throughout the seasons with Anne. If you haven't heard of this book yet, I would be a little shocked, but it's about a young orphaned girl who ends up being adopted by a brother and sister on Prince Edward Island in Canada. And it's just kind of a coming of age novel, and it's really about the beautiful ways that Anne, in all her whimsy and wonder, impact the people of this town called Avonlea. And it's a beautiful story. If you're really into the whimsical, super nature-inspired, childlike wonder, then I would definitely recommend this one for you. Okay, next on my list is one that is gaining a lot of popularity online, and it is Tress of the Emerald Sea. And this is another one that I would say is not like explicitly fall themed, but I feel like fall is just the best time for reading fantasy novels, and I thought this was a great way to dip my toes into the Sanderson world because, as we all know, he's written a lot of books, and I know that starting one of the series would just get me in way too deep, way too fast right now. So I am really excited that he wrote this standalone, and it's honestly not what I expected it to be. And I don't really know what I expected from it, but it's about this girl named Tress, and some events happen and she ends up leaving her home island to go travel the world in search of someone she loves. And her goal is to rescue this person and bring them back home. And we just meet the wildest cast of characters in this book. And again, there's a lot of whimsy and wonder in this novel that Sanderson just really brings to life. And that's what fall reading is really all about to me, is finding those stories that have the whimsy and wonder that fall brings as a season. So that's why I've included this one, and I'm actually about halfway through it right now. So it's also just hilarious. Like, his humor is on point. So if you're looking for a really funny, entertaining fantasy book, I highly recommend giving this one a try. All right, next up is The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake, and this is going to be a complicated recommendation for you because it's very dark academia. So if you like dark academia at all, I think you're really going to love this. It does deal with a lot of those darker, heavier themes, but we have some really interesting characters propelling the story forward. And just the way they all interact with each other and their different motivations are fascinating, and there's really interesting magic that is treated more like science in some ways, but it still has a lot of whimsy to it. And this is about a group of 6 students, the Atlas 6, who are invited to this secret society that protects the Library of Alexandria. So this is kind of an imaginative storytelling of if the Library of Alexandria still existed but in secret, and it was guarded by a very elite group of specialized magicians. And the thing about that one is, personally, I read the second book in the series and it did not measure up to the first one. So I do feel like you can kind of read it as a standalone if you're not super motivated to read the rest of the series. So I feel like that one's really up to you. Next up is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. And I had some mixed feelings on this book, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I did read it last fall and it felt like the perfect timing. I read it in early October and the vibes were vibing. And it is about this woman who kind of strikes a deal with the devil in a sense and ends up living this immortal life. And so we kind of see her over the years throughout all these different time periods, and I do wish we had a little bit more character development from her, but I feel like there are a couple of other characters who are so lively and vibrant that we do get some really interesting character study from the side characters. But mostly I really loved this one for not to like sound totally Gen Z, but like for the vibes. Yeah, so this book starts in France in 1714, and by the end of it we end up in basically modern day, I think, New York. Okay, I'm super excited to tell you about this book because I know for sure that not very many people know about this book, but I think everyone should. And this was first recommended to me by my friend Olivia, and you can actually find her over on her channel, Olivia Grace Cook. I feel like I just need to read the back of the book for you, and I really don't want to spoil anything, but just think like Scottish coast, dense fog, early November, cold, rainy, horse racing on the Scottish coast. So the back says, "It is the first day of November, and so today someone will die. Even under the brightest sun, the frigid autumn sea is all the colors of the night, dark blue and black and brown. I watch the ever-changing patterns in the sand as it's pummeled by countless hooves. They run the horses on the beach, a pale road between the black water and the chalk cliffs. It is never safe, but it's never so dangerous as today, race day." So this is probably the most atmospheric fall book I've ever read. Alright, so last in this little category we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Oh my gosh, if you haven't read this or heard of it, it needs to go on your list, because this is another one of those fantasy books that's not necessarily set in fall, but it has a lot of those vibes that we're running after, right? And so there's a lot of whimsy, there's a lot of magic. And if you've heard of Netflix's show Shadow and Bone, this is actually the story of the crows, which is one of the main plot lines. But I'm a die-hard believer in the book is always better than the movie or the show, with one exception, which is The Scarlet Pimpernel by Baroness Orczy, but we'll save that for a different time. But I thought season 1 was done very well, and then season 2, I think, unfortunately, they switched directors and producers and something weird happened, and they didn't get renewed for a new season, and I think that was part of why the show didn't match my expectations. But I actually saw the show first, which is unusual for me, and then I read this after, and I was just blown away by how much better the book is. Like, it's incredible. You will be on the edge of your seat the entire read. It's such a page turner, and I have to warn you, you'll probably get addicted to it. And it is a duology, so there's a sequel to this. But yeah, just to give you a little taste of the plot, it is about a group of 6 unlikely sort of friends. It's more like they kind of become friends over the course of the story, but they are all hired to do a heist. And so the story is really about the heist, the different betrayals, the secrets, and everyone has a secret. Everyone has their own kind of stake in the game, but oh, I don't know what else to say. It's just so good. You have to read it for yourself. If I can give you a brief little description from the book of each character, maybe it'll hook you. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, and a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. Okay, so now we're gonna move into some books that I have on my TBR, my to be read list, that I haven't actually read yet, but I am really wanting to read this autumn. Same author as Six of Crows, Leigh Bardugo, wrote this standalone fantasy called The Familiar, and this has been on my list for a very long time, so I know I'm kind of late to picking this up, but this was published in 2024, and I think I did pick it up last summer. And truth be told, I really don't know a ton about this book other than what I've read from the blurb, which says that it's about a lowly scullion in Madrid, and she's determined to build a better life for herself, and I think there's some like mysterious magic involved. I think it's like a kind of a historical fantasy set in Madrid around the time of the Inquisition. I kind of like that I don't know much more than that going into this, but I'm really excited for this one. And another fantasy book that I've had on my list for so long is The Name of the Wind by Patrik Rothfus. And I've been meaning to read this one literally for years, so I'm like, I need to make it happen. So I think this fall and winter is going to be very like fantasy heavy for me. I'm going to be reading a lot of books that I have, you know, been stockpiling on my TBR. I think a lot of us do this to an extent, and we just end up with so many books and there's so little time. But this is one of those that I really need to read, especially because I've had a lot of people tell me that it will really inform my own writing too, and because this is about a bard who goes on an adventure, and there's a lot of music and poetry, and from what I've been told, Patrik Rothfus even just like casually slips into verse in his writing, and that is a talent in its own right. So I'm very excited to not just experience the story, but like specifically dig into his writing and experience that. And then I do have a very hefty classic on my TBR list, but that is The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. And I did read some excerpts from this in a college philosophy class, but that feels like forever ago now, and I never got to read the entire book, so that's something I've always wanted to do, and I found this really gorgeous copy when I was thrift shopping a few weeks ago. You can go check out my preparing for fall video if you want more background on that, but yeah, this is like a really well-known classic Russian literature, and it's very philosophically heavy, and maybe it's because of like fall semesters and college and grad school that I feel this way, but fall just feels like a very academic, like literary, philosophical time of the year. So I love leaning into that more academic side of reading. Alright, and then I just have a couple more books on my TBR list. One of the authors that I've been wanting to check out for a long time is Kingfisher, and I've just heard so many great things about her books. Specifically, I've heard A Sorceress Comes to Call is a great, very fallish, October-y book. I've heard a lot about the Paladin's Grace series, and I think there's a few others I've heard of as well, but from what I've heard, she does write a lot more like horror elements than I'm usually comfortable with. I have a very low tolerance for like scary horror type stories. I am not into that at all. So if you've read any of her work, please let me know in the comments, like if I am totally going down the wrong path with that. Like if you've read any of her her books and they did lean really heavily into that horror element, then I should probably take her off of my list. I just feel like there's been a lot of hype built up around her books, especially for fall. And then the other book that I just recently found is called All the Horses of Iceland by Sarah Tolmie. And to me, the description sounds so similar to the Scorpio races by Maggie Stiefvater, which we just talked about. And I love that book so much that I read this description and I was like, oh my gosh, if that is anything like the Scorpio races, I think I have to read that. So yeah, it's described as a hypnotic historical fantasy with gorgeous and unusual literary prose, from the captivating author of The Fourth Island. And I don't know anything about that book, The Fourth Island, but if this ends up being a really great read, I think I'll check out Sarah Tolmie's other works for sure. So this one is a delve into the secret imagined history of Iceland's unusual horses, brought to life by an expert storyteller. Everyone knows of the horses of Iceland, wild and small and free, but few have heard their story. Filled with magic and darkened whispers of a people on the cusp of major cultural change, All the Horses of Iceland tells the tale of a Norse trader, his travels through Central Asia, and the ghostly magic that followed him home to the land of fire, stone, and ice. His search for riches will take him from Helmgard through Khazaria to the steppes of Mongolia, where he will barter for horses and return with much, much more. So, sounds great to me. Okay, before I let you go, I realized I forgot 3 very important books. So, the first is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and I think by this point, we all kind of know about it, and it's best to go in having minimal expectations, but it's kind of known as like the first true dark academia book of our generation or of our time, and it's very unique, and it's this huge mystery, except it's a very unconventional one. And so instead of trying to figure out who committed the crime, you're trying to figure out why they committed it, and kind of what events led up to that point, and how the characters got to the place they got to. So I definitely recommend reading this if you have not, but do be warned, it is pretty heavy, and very heavy on the classical academia and philosophy. So if you're into that, it's perfect for you. If you're not, maybe save it for later. Anything, literally anything by the Bronte sisters, I feel like is perfect for fall, and I'm trying to work my way all the way through all of the Bronte sister novels. So far I've read Wuthering Heights, Jane Eyre, and I've read Agnes Grey, which is by Anne Bronte. So that's kind of fun for me because I've read something by each sister, and yeah, my goal is to read everything they've written. I just think they're great authors to add to your list, especially if you are wanting to get more into classic literature and you don't really know where to start. And I just feel like the Bronte sisters are the perfect like atmospheric storytellers for the fall season. That is the extent of my to be read list for right now, but you know, I'm always adding more books all the time. So if you have any recommendations for me, I would love to hear which books you feel like are the quintessence of fall. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below if you are interested in any of these books, or if you've read any of them, or whatever else is on your fall reading list.